testing the audio for you.
When you're ready.
Happy? Okay. And we're rolling. Finally, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are
Okay,
you?
good. I'm not bad. I think for those and you guys really should watch. By the way, hello, welcome to Blended Agenda. You should go and watch the video where I chat to Mandy and we had a meandering conversation around a swimming pool, which is very different weather to today. It's cold in Cape Town today. So I'm dressed up and my guest is dressed up. You'll meet him in a moment. But the reason why I want you to go and watch that video, because this is a direct link to the conversation Mandy and I had. And you'll recall in her conversation, she mentions her husband, Gareth, quite a lot. And according to her, is quite an admirable fella.
My current husband and my practice husband were sitting next to each other on the side of the hockey field.
Wow.
So, yeah, I think that, again, credit to Gareth because he's just been very respectful and really hasn't got involved.
So it was only fair, I thought, that I haul him into the Blended Agenda studio, which, by the way, today is the Victoria Junction Hotel in Greenpoint in Cape Town. Lovely spot, beautiful smell of coffee in the background. And if you're ever in Cape Town, come and check it out. They do a fabulous buffet breakfast here. So I've hauled Gareth in here to come and have a chat and find out how fabulous he actually is as Mandy's husband. Now, I think what I found particularly curious, Gareth, thanks for joining me, by the way, is the fact that you are Mandy's second husband. She's your first wife. And you stepped into the relationship with Mandy when she had children already. Just give me a little bit of a paint a bit of a picture about how that came to be.
Yeah, we actually met online and we weren't really sure what we were looking for, but I guess we both figured we were looking for something. And we got dating, and quite early on, Mandy asked me, like, how do you feel about me having two children? She was upfront from it. There was no surprise, to the process. And I said, I don't know.
Honest response?
Yes. And it's an interesting one because I think it wasn't even something that had ever come up for me. I hadn't envisioned myself having children. And so when I said I don't know, I meant it. And obviously that led to further conversations and interactions. And it was something that I really took a while to get my head around. Mandy was very much, you having spent some time with her now, you'll know. I think 3 weeks after we started dating, she's like, oh, can you come around and watch the kids while I go to book club?
Whoa.
And I was like, holy crap, like,
Deep end.
what am I going to do here? With a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old. I think they were probably more nervous than I was.
Was this a test, do you think?
It may have been a test, or maybe Mandy just didn't have anybody else available at short notice. I don't have to ask her.
Because the kids have to approve as well, don't they?
They do have to
They've got
approve.
to like the person.
They do have to approve. And that in itself, what you raised there for me is quite important because at the end of the day, how much say do they have over who their mom is dating? And how does that interaction work? I don't know. Mandy obviously had dated a few other men, and it had come up with, they had families as well sometimes, or sometimes they didn't. But it was an interesting situation, and it was something I can quite distinctly remember that little time of babysitting, for want of a better word, and it was like, okay, how do I put these kids to bed? Like, how do I feed them? Like, what's the expectation?
At least you didn't have to change nappies.
Well, we actually often talk about that. And we said if we'd met when Mandy's kids were toddlers, we're not sure it would have lasted. We're not sure it would have even become a thing. So that's a whole different conversation again in itself.
Yeah.
I think if I look back on it, the age gap or the age of the kids was enough that we could have an interaction. There was a level of independence, even though they were still quite little, and that took a little bit of pressure off from my point of view. And I really think like the awkwardness was probably all coming from me. I've never considered myself a kid person. even though I've worked in space with kids and coached kids a lot, I never felt myself to be the warmest or the most comfortable around kids.
Yeah.
So yeah, there were a lot of big steps that were taken,
So I can imagine, and I'm just guessing here now. I can imagine that if you have little kids whose lives you're entering, that if they liked you, that would be a bonus
Yeah.
and could almost oil the relationship a little bit and lubricate it a little bit. And if they didn't like you and said to their mom in this case that we don't like that man, that wouldn't necessarily doom the relationship from the beginning. I think you might have something to work on from that point, but it's not like an either or, is it? I imagine.
Yeah, I think Ryan and Rods liked me well enough, and I believe the fact that Mandy was comfortable enough for me to be alone with them for a short babysitting stint suggests her level of comfort with me.
Yep.
So there's actually a little bit of an interplay here, because if Mandy and I are comfortable, the kids are going to feel more comfortable,
Yeah.
and it will then become more of a symbiosis.
Let's pull back a little bit, because you said that you've actually worked in a particular space before. So what do you do? What did you do when you two met?
So I'm a high performance coach, working with high performing individuals and teams. And in that space, when I first met Mandy, I was still only in sport. So I was a high performance hockey coach. And because that's an amateur sport in this country, I had to get a day job. And the day job was working at a school.
Uh-huh.
And so there was lots of coaching of kids across all the age groups. And after 30 years in that space, I'd obviously gone from the little ones all the way up to the adults. So that was where that interaction had come from.
I know what you guys are thinking. I'm gonna ask the same question now because it came up. So you're working with high performing and by extension good looking, well proportioned young people. Why did you have to go online to find a partner?
Well, most of the time I was coaching men.
Okay.
And second of all, it's not always appropriate to try and strike up relationships with players. So, and it's actually funny you asked that, because I didn't want to be involved with someone in the hockey space. Part of going online was to get out of that social circle. And I think Mandy felt the same way in terms of her space in a school environment. So it was a little bit of a sweet spot for us both to go and find, spread the net wider, shall we say?
Yeah.
Swipe the net wider.
Yeah. That's also why you are not in handcuffs today, I imagine. So it's a good thing.
Yes, absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
let's delve a little bit deeper. So now there was a likability about you. You and the kids got on. This obviously set the tone a bit, and there's one less thing to be worried about.
Yes.
And that's always helpful, isn't it? I mean, if there is going to be a hurdle and it's no longer, that's something you can set aside almost. You don't have to concern yourself with that too much anymore.
Absolutely. But I still think there was comfort that grew over time. I was quite, not sure how to manage a relationship or manage discipline or manage interactions. Probably came on quite strong, little bit severe to start with, like trying to impose something on the kids. And Mandy is more laissez-faire and much more flexible, much more on the kids' level from the point of view of a connection.
Is that a Mandy thing, or is that a mom thing?
I think it's a mom thing, with Mandy's unique ability to connect on an emotional level, which is obviously so natural and so strong with the kids that she doesn't have to work at it. And I think I was guilty at the beginning of working at it too much. I wanted routine, I wanted this, I wanted that. And without perhaps communicating it in a warm way, and showing it in a vulnerable way, that I didn't necessarily know what I was doing, even though it was very obvious that I didn't know what I was doing. And these are two kids who didn't necessarily need that kind of parenting,
Which brings me to the conversation around parenting, because I think most parents will say that something gets triggered in the moment when you become a parent? And I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, physiologists, doctors, clever people out there, if there's a hormone that suddenly gets released or whatever the case may be, but there's a switch in the way you see life and the way you deal with life and the way you handle interactions. That moment when you see your child, your blood, which you didn't have obviously. So how did you make the switch from being a single childless man to suddenly being a parent of two?
Yeah. I didn't make that switch like that. I can tell you, it was something of a long time of building comfort and accepting or understanding that it wasn't about me, and I didn't have to impose what I thought was appropriate parenting. When I started to take a lead from Mandy, when I started to, I think, not try and interfere quite as much. And the one thing I know that I did deliberately from the beginnings, I didn't try to become their dad, because I'm not their dad. I'm another male figure in their lives. And now I've been with them now for 10 years. I've been in their life for 10 years. Are we still learning and growing and feeling our way around certain situations? We definitely are. But the only thing I can say I did deliberately at the time was, I'm not these kids' dad. I'm someone new, and I'm not trying to replace anybody. If anything, I'm hopefully going to enhance a relationship.
Was there a bit of friction at first?
I think there was. And again, it was how do I talk to kids? How do I connect with them on a level which feels comfortable for them and appropriate for them? So I was a little bit too much of the coach, where I'd be like trying to crack a whip, not physically, of course. And that took a while. It was a little bit hard. Like Mandy would always say, like, just try and be a little bit softer. And that has got better, but it's something that is not necessarily my natural character. And I still continue to have to be aware of it. And it's changed as the kids have got older. I think our relationship has become easier as the kids have got older. The kids can now perhaps see me for who I am, in a more adult way. And that's made it a lot easier. I feel much more comfortable with them now than I did when they were kind of under the age of 10, 11, because maybe it's just my sweet spot from where I start connecting with people. So that's been something that I've noticed, and I've noticed it more and more. Like the comfort level, what we can talk about, how we talk about it, that's definitely improved and grown.
As I see you talk a lot about sort of taking the lead from Mandy and sort of learning from her. And I'm very interested to know how far you take that, considering that we started out by saying that moms generally are softer and generally are maybe a little bit more sort of permissive and giving and soft and all the good stuff that's necessary. And dads by nature are a little bit harder and more disciplinarian. So there might be disagreement for Gareth to soften up a little bit when the hard is actually needed also.
Yeah, it's quite funny you say that. I often think that, and I say it sometimes to Mandy, is like these kids have got her wrapped around their little fingers. Like she almost never says no to them. And not inappropriately if I consider it, but I will often say, well, you don't have to go and fetch them right now. They can wait, if they finish sport or whatever. And there are times where I think we take on a little bit of a good cop and a bad cop, where I'm a little bit firmer, but I can tell you that they're not coming to me to ask me for permission to do something. They're going to Mandy first. And if Mandy's not around, I can see that it takes a little bit of psyching up for Robin to come and ask me if she can go out or if she can go somewhere. So, yeah, I think I'm always going to be a little bit firmer, a little bit less flexible. But in reality, there's not too many times I give them a hard no either.
But it's necessary, don't you think? It's necessary for kids to have the no's and to have to psych themselves up because it's a hard thing to do. That's a necessary lesson in life, no?
I think so. But also knowing, hopefully, that when it's a really important conversation or a really important request that needs to be had, they're going to come and do it because they
Mm.
know that they're going to get the right response, the response that they need.
Yeah.
So I possibly will tend to a little bit overreact about some of the minor housekeeping things, but if it's something big that needs to be dealt with properly, I'm going to do it
Yeah.
in the right way with an open heart.
Is it easier with the boy or easier with the girl?
So Ryan's in boarding school, and I would say that we were a little bit distant. I would say that as he's got older, we've actually got a little bit more male connection. Maybe not always appropriate. Like Mandy rolls her eyes a little bit, and I laugh at the jokes that she wish I wasn't laughing at. But I think we've got quite comfortable. Again, I've never tried to. I don't share a lot of his interests. Like, he's into things I'm not into, and I can respect his interest and his passion in those things. But I'm not going to be going fishing with him, for example. It's just not what I do. He's very outdoorsy. He's super into that kind of stuff, whereas I'm kind of like this. And I can respect his commitment to his hobbies and his projects. I really respect that. And I think as he's got older, as Ryan's got older, he's home less. He prefers Pretoria to Joburg, which is his fault, not mine. But that's where he's comfortable. When he comes home, he checks in. We have a good time. We have a chat. We catch up. I think my kind of most regular connection and I think my most visceral connection is with Robin. But I've been with her longer, if that makes sense. Not in terms of time, but in terms of the amount of contact we've had in the 10 years that we've been together. And again, we're also starting to understand each other. Like, I think often when we're early on, I'm quite dry and I'm quite sarcastic. The kids didn't necessarily realize I was joking. And it took us a while to realize that's who I am. That's my sense of humor.
It's a similarity between you and I. There's a huge learning curve for the kinds of humor, and when I say something with a straight face, but it's meant to be dry and it's meant to, it's meant to be funny, and it's not always taken that way. I found it, and to a degree continue to find it, a bit harder with a girl that is in my blood that I'm raising. And I think that's got to do with how girls connect with their biological dads as they grow older. And it's almost paradoxical, I find, that the more time passes and the less they see their biological dad, the closer she feels to her father, and the more distance develops between her and her adoptive father, say, or a stepfather. But you saying it's different for you. You're saying that you grew closer over time.
I think our relationship, we have definitely grown closer. And it's and the word I keep coming back to is there's more comfort. So she can give it and I'll give it back. And it's not taken beyond what it is, which is just part of a kind of a give and take. And that's been good. That's been fun. And I know like Robin's relationship with her dad, Ryan's relationship with his dad, they have different relationships. I think Ryan's much closer. Robin, there's a deep love there, but the connection on a deeper level could be stronger.
Okay.
Does that mean that I have become elevated in my relationship with her? No, I don't think so. Again, like we said earlier, I'm not trying to be her dad. I don't want to be her dad. I want to be someone that can be close to her.
It's a difference between, and I say it like this: I'm not your father, I'm not your dad, but I am one of your parents, because that is a practical daily thing that I have to do. I've got to parent you on a daily basis. But on a biological level, I'm not your dad.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the difference that you're describing.
I think so. And I mean, it's a little thing for me. Like, I will call them, he's my son, she's my daughter. I'm their stepdad when they refer to me.
Because words matter, don't they?
They do.
Find. I've also made the switch. I also introduce my stepdaughter as my daughter. And there was a reluctance over time, and I think it's gotten better now, where there wasn't an introduction at first, so she wouldn't introduce me. And then later on, there are introductions, but it's more sort of Bobby as opposed to stepdad or dad or whatever the case may be, because it's almost as once you verbalize it, once you say it, it makes it real almost. And I think for some people, the reality is a little bit hard to swallow, maybe?
Possibly. And again, I'm comfortable. As I said, I'm happy not being the dad, and I'm happy being close to them. It's the same. They've inherited 2 more grandparents as well, and they're Karen and Neil.
Yeah.
They're not Gran and Grandpa.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Because they're not Gran and Grandpa. They're Karen and Neil, and Karen and Neil adore them. As I think they've really been accepting and really like having the kids around. But it's a different relationship, and it's not a replacement; it's an add-on.
How do you and Mandy deal with a scenario where your disciplining style is maybe grating, or she doesn't appreciate it? Are you left in the moment and spoken to later, or have you found a frictious moment that perhaps you didn't appreciate?
So early on, I would be the one saying, "Go to your room," and that would not necessarily be Mandy's response. Now, I still have to be careful of escalating or elevating a response, whereas Mandy is very measured and comes from a very non-judgmental place, whereas I'll kind of be like, "Oh my God, what's happened now?" Mandy will be much calmer in her initial response.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's a good thing because it gives us that little contrast we spoke about earlier. But I think I've learned a lot from Mandy in that to not jump to a response as quickly as I used to. And I don't think that Mandy and I clash about it as much as we did before, where I would come on too strong, and it wouldn't be that she would undermine or come and try and unwalk it back. But I think now there's a higher degree of consistency, and that's important, actually.
Mandy and I, when we spoke about something I call guilt parenting. I'm sure there's a proper phrase for it, but essentially what I mean is I find that, and I can only speak from my experience, where a single mom is feeling guilty about the absence of the dad for whatever reason. And therefore, there's a lot more permissiveness with the child, a lot more sort of ignoring of bad behavior with the child, because there's this guilt involved in your dad not being in the home. Is that something that's reflected in your home in any way?
It's something I've thought about, but I don't believe it is. I don't believe it is reflected. I think Mandy and her ex, their relationship, of course, they divorced. They're not going to be like best mates. But they're a little bit closer in terms of how they communicate what parenting is going on in which household and what crises need to be addressed or what issues need to be addressed. I've never thought of Mandy as having that guilty conscience about how she parents and why she does certain things. I do think that, like all parents, she would give the kids everything and she wishes she could give more. But she's a very generous parent in terms of what she gives emotionally. And she's very wholehearted in her emotional investment in the kids. And I notice that every day.
This is an impossible question, but I'm curious about your answer anyway. Because you don't know what you don't know, right? But do you feel like a dad, like a father?
Yes. Again, you're right. It's an impossible question, but I do. I get very emotional when the kids are successful, and I get very emotional when the kids are in a tough spot, and I want to rescue them, which is not necessarily the right reaction because they don't usually need rescuing. They just need some backup. But I get really excited when I hear them doing well on the sports field or in the classroom. I like to see them. What I've really enjoyed in the last couple of years is them going through kind of those kind of rites of passage, like matric dances and kind of, unfortunately, Robin getting into the dating scene. I'd like her to wait till she's about 35. I think that's an appropriate time.
That's a very fatherly thing to say, mind you. So I would say the answer to my question is probably yeah, absolutely yes. The issue around they're all sensitive topics, so I think I'll just set aside the context of a sensitive question. When you do discipline in a very strict, harsh way, have they? Do you? And I think the question really is: do you feel respected in your home as? And I open myself up to criticism here. As the leader of your home, do you feel that you are respected? And I'm not talking about Mandy, I'm specifically talking about the kids.
I usually, when I get severe in the discipline, I then feel rather sheepish and stupid afterwards, because the way I've been packaging it for myself is that it's not about me, and I'm making it about me by getting so over the top. I find I do that less and less, and I do still lose my temper. I do say things I shouldn't say in the moment, but much less. And in all honesty, the authority figure in the house when it comes to discipline is Mandy, and I'm there as her backup. Early on, I think I tried to impose my style of discipline, and I'm happy to say I don't do that nearly as much as I used to.
But you feel happy with that? Do you not feel shortchanged in the call it domestic culture that you would want to bring into your home? Do you not feel in any way shortchanged?
No, I don't feel shortchanged. I know that if I engage and I ask a question, or I ask for support, or say, please go and do something, it gets done. And I'm comfortable with that. Do I sometimes wish for a bit more affection or a bit more overt expressions of love, I suppose? Yes, I do. But again, is that about me or is that about them? And how much am I giving versus how much do I expect to receive?
Are you comfortable with walking up to your stepdaughter and giving her a big bear hug?
Yes, I am. But it doesn't happen as often as it probably should.
And this is I think where one sort of starts venturing into the emotional gravity of the deep-seated emotional gravity of men that we don't often speak of, because we do need that, don't we?
Yeah, totally. Mandy and I have a very close, affectionate relationship, and like Robin's like, oh, please don't do that. Like, oh, when we give each other a hug and a kiss or whatever in the kitchen. But at least what I do think is that maybe I don't get it from them as much as I could or should, or however you want to describe it. I don't know actually. But we do role model an affectionate relationship in our relationship between Mandy and I consider that quite valuable, and I think they do as well. They don't jump up and down about it, and like Robin's 15, like of course she doesn't want to see her parents kissing, but I think it's good role modeling, and that's one thing we do get right, and that we do problem solve with each other. We argue and whatever, and we have our disagreements, but we deal with them mostly in a mature, affectionate, adult way.
I think one of the things that don't get spoken about often enough is the question that I asked, and maybe I should just rephrase it slightly, because there are, for a parent, all parents, but I'm talking about dads in particular now, because Blended Agenda is about how men cope with these things. There are few things in life that can compare to the genuine, authentic, warm hug of your child, especially when they're little. There's something that softens even the hardest of men, and it weakens you. It's the ability of your 5-year-old daughter or your 3-year-old son to just lean into you and hold you tight and hug you for no reason sometimes. That most men won't say out loud, but it's something we hold quite dear.
Yeah.
And it's the reason I asked you that question, because once you have that, it's one of those things that's in the ether. you can't really describe it. It doesn't really have a definition. It's just a moment. And when you have many of those moments, it kind of fulfills you a little.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering if that is something that is perhaps absent for you, or that you do have in some way.
We have a connection. Doesn't involve that much physical affection. Again, though, I think that's not about the kids. That's about me. I've never been that person for
You have a
whatever.
bit of a cold,
Yeah,
distant sort of.
yeah. And Mandy's actually one of the few that's bridged that gap. So I hear you, and I actually agree with you. Do I wish there was more? Yes, but it's not about the kids. It's about me, and it's historical for me and with various other things, which is probably a whole different podcast. But it's yes. Would I like more? Yes, I would. But I think I'm the one who needs to bridge that gap, not them.
I think
The spontaneity. Sorry, that spontaneity when they're 4, 5, 6 years old. Now 16, 17, 18, different story. How do I bridge that? Do I bridge it? Don't know.
it's a tough one, because I think it's true for most men of a certain generation, and I speak of mine, who were brought up by hardworking, relatively cold men themselves, who were hugging. So it was a high five, and it was a fist, the equivalent of a fist bump or whatever. It was seldom a never let go bear hug. It was seldom that. So we weren't taught that that was an acceptable thing. And I think once we start getting it when we are adults, we realize how lovely it is.
Yeah.
And how nice it is. But it's still hard for us to do. And I don't know what that is. I don't know why we find it hard to just lean into a 10-year-old and just to give them a great big hug. And I think it's a challenge most men have.
Yes, and it's a challenge I definitely have. I've only got warmer physically with my father and my brother in the last 5 or 8 years, and I'm 50. So it's maybe I'll grow into it. Maybe it's something, I hope it is, that I can find. I think the emotional vulnerability of talking and accepting and saying how I feel has been the first part of that process. And perhaps the next part of that process is being able to demonstrate it with physical action.
Do you fear at all this phrase, which I believe a lot of men stepfathers fear? Do you fear ever hearing the words, "You're not my dad"?
Well, I've heard it once from Robin.
In an angry way, I mean. In an altercation.
She was super angry because we were trying to make her take malaria tablets and she just would not. So yes, I do. I have insecurities around, as we all get older, does that connection wane or does it get stronger? I feel like it's got stronger, but what's going to happen when the kids are well into adulthood, when they have their own children? Where do I fit in? What happens when we're really old? Like, these things are things that I ponder. I ponder.
Because I do think it cuts deep for a man who has spent, and I mean, we show our affection in ways vastly different from the way women do. We provide, and when we provide particularly well, we feel particularly proud of ourselves. And we do that over a protracted, sustained period of time, years in our case, to at the end of it, 10, 15, 20 years. If I think if that was ever said to you after that period of time, it's a phrase that could potentially destroy certain people.
Yeah, I think I would really struggle if I heard that. I really do, because the ownership, for what, I don't think that's the right word, but there's an ownership of the relationship, and you feel invested and you feel committed, and that would be something that I would hope I never hear.
How does, again, exploratory question, how would you deal with something like that? I mean, I think it becomes less and less likely the older the kids get, because as they become adults and they they start understanding the world from an adult perspective, and eventually when they become parents, I think the chance of it happening for a child at the age of 25 or 30 is less likely than 10 or 15, where they're acting out and being rebellious and so on.
I hope that I would not overreact to the situation, that I would accept it, and I would be honest enough to say that that's a hurtful thing to hear, a painful thing to hear.
Do you hope to ever walk your stepdaughter down the aisle one day?
No, I don't, because I hope that her dad will be around to do it for her.
Do you not think you deserve it?
No.
That's interesting, because I think I deserve it. And for me, I would feel a little bit hurt at. I would like the opportunity to say no. I would like to say, I'd like to pass this on to your dad. I think you'll feel more comfortable if you. I know why you're doing it, and thank you, but I think your dad should do it. I know of a scenario where both the biological dad and the stepdad were both present at the ceremony, and one played one role and the other played another role, which I thought was beautiful.
So selfishly, I would hope that I had a role. I don't think it should be walking Robin down the aisle, unless for some reason Gavin's not there. Heaven forbid that he is there. So yeah, I would like to have a role. I would hope to have a role, but not the big one like that.
The name Gavin just popped up, which means we have to talk about Gavin, the biological dad, the elephant in the room in this whole conversation, because I'm very curious about how you and Gavin get on, and if that's genuine. And I've known scenarios where husbands and ex-husbands actually became good buddies, more so than almost excluding the woman in the story in a way. So let's tackle that conversation, shall we? Getting into a little bit more meat now, and I think this is probably where a lot of people have issues, challenges. Sometimes they're self-imposed, sometimes they circumstantially can't do anything about it. But do you and Mandy's ex, Gavin, get on?
Yes, we do. Are we the best of mates? No. But we are comfortable in each other's company, and we are able to talk comfortably as around the kids and compare notes and share experiences. I think what's really changed as they've got a little bit older is that we're now watching the same sports event, or we're at the matric dance, or whatever it might be, and now we can both just appreciate it for what it is and be happy to be there. When we were younger, I felt I didn't know where I fitted in. I wanted to stay distant. I didn't go out of my way to kind of walk over and say, "How's it, Gav?" when he was dropping the kids or picking the kids up or whatever. But the more we've done it, it's become easier. There's a bit of physical distance. We live in Johannesburg. Gavin lives in Pretoria. So when we do see each other, it's kind of at a sports fixture. The kids are old enough now; they can hop on the car train when they want to go between houses, which is helpful at times. I'm respectful of Gavin. I'm respectful of the journey that he's on. He's in his own blended family, and he's also making it work on his side. So from that point of view, are we going to phone each other up and go for a beer or have a braai together? Probably not.
I think you should, since you're both in blended families. I mean, you might be able to teach each other a few things.
Possibly.
Does he respect your role?
Yes, very much so, and he's been vocal about it, which I appreciate.
Oh, so he's said out loud, and has he said it to his kids? That has he said something, perhaps like, "You will respect Gareth," or something to that effect?
I don't know. I don't know if there's been anything directive. I do know that he has said it out loud in front of the kids.
Oh wow!
So from that point of view, I'm appreciative of that.
That is hugely admirable.
Yeah, I agree. And again, I'm around for Robin a lot. You know, Ryan goes to school in Pretoria, so he sees his dad a lot more. Okay. When he's, weekends, it's easier just to go to dad's house.
Yeah.
And as I said, Ryan's kind of roots are now in Pretoria because that's where he went to school. But yeah, very, very aware of my being part of a family. And I've always appreciated that Gavin has been willing to say that. And Gavin and Ryan on a journey, Gavin and Robin on a different journey, Gavin and Mandy are on a journey.
I was about to ask you,
know?
what is Mandy's role in all of this?
Well, I think Mandy and Gavin, as they've got older, as they've settled into their new families, there's always going to be overlap. I think that the way they interact with each other has become a little calmer, a little less burdensome, shall we say. And I think, of course, the nature of the conversation changes because the kids are older. There's a little bit more housekeeping. And the kids can almost be the go-betweens between the two of them, which I think helps. And so that's also become a little bit easier because Mandy's less triggered by Gavin, so I don't have to try and fill a gap there, whatever that gap
You're the
may be.
peacemaker.
And fortunately, I never really had to be a peacemaker. But yeah, I think it is what it is. It's functional. That's the word I'd use for it. Everybody gets on. Everybody knows what's happening. We don't always necessarily agree with what's happening from one household to the next, but there's more consistency than there was.
Oh, that's wonderful, because it does, and I'm glad you said that, because one of the issues, I think, and I think this is so prevalent, and there's so many different levels of it that it's almost difficult to talk about. But it's the usage of the children as tools or instruments of destruction in the other house. And I'm gonna guess that you haven't really had much of that.
Not a great deal. Again, the aging of the kids has meant that we know where they are more comfortable.
Yep.
Robin is more comfortable in our house. Ryan is very comfortable in both houses, but his preference is his dad's house for many reasons. And that is, sometimes a little difficult because we'd like Robin to spend more time with her dad. And I think that we'd like to see that happen. We don't quite know how that happens. And you don't want to force an issue anymore. I said to Mandy, I remember saying it years ago, I said, at some point, one of them might choose to be more time with one of you than the other. And who is that about? Is it about you or is it about them? And you've got to accept their decision. And fortunately, I think the blendedness of our family has got stronger over the years. Whereas I don't think perfection is possible in this space. It is what it is.
So you've never found a scenario where you are undermined in any way, or your authority is questioned or undermined in any way via Gavin's home or him as a person?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. He's supportive, and I think he's a little more authoritarian than Mandy. And he's said, like, if what Gareth says goes, what Mandy says goes.
Oh, that's amazing.
He's never pushed back in that space.
It's almost an anticlimax. I was hoping for some friction, for some drama, that we can explore a little bit and give you some advice on how to deal with it, how he's dealt with it. But they just all get on. How boring. No. I think it's great, firstly, and I think there are a lot of lessons to be learned for how to be adult about it. But it obviously wasn't always that way. At the beginning, there may have been some flashpoints.
There were. I mean, it's lifestyles are different in different households. There's boundaries and agreements on what is allowed and not allowed are different in different households.
Is that exported? If there's something that's allowed there, are you allowing it in your house also?
Well, this is where not the problem, but this is what you have to address.
Yeah.
If a cell phone is allowed in one household, is it allowed in the other household? And really, once you cross the boundary, you can't go back.
No good. Yeah, no good.
And I think that's been an issue. Not an issue. I think it's been one of the things we've had to overcome and manage over the years. And I think it's actually, again, I hate to be boring, but it's got better.
Mm-hmm.
There's more engagement around this process. There's Gavin, I give him a lot of credit for his supporting of the kids through school fees and all of that, providing them with an education. And that's really valuable.
Yeah.
And I think where there might be issues is like, again, like, what is your worldview? So you've got a different worldview in one household to the other, whether it's about religion or it's about, how you see certain human rights issues, whatever it might be. Neither good nor bad, just different, or it's how it's expressed, and that can be something that the kids take on and bring across. And it's how do you engage with it? What kind of conversations are you having? So I think it's more about awareness than saying that what we believe is better than what happens there, because most of the time it's not, and most of the time it's really just semantics.
Yeah.
So that's, I would say now as they get older, you hear comments of what's happening in this house. I'm sure they hear comments of what's happening in our house, and it's making sure that your response is measured and in good faith, knowing that the response in the other household is also measured.
But sometimes it's big and sometimes it's small. And I remember an incident where I think it had something to do with how dinner is had. And I remember there was an issue with, in the other house, it's okay for us to sit in front of the TV and eat. And in my house, it's absolutely not okay. We sit at the dinner table and we connect, and we half an hour of just enjoying each other's company and having a meal together. And there was a moment where that was almost imported into my home. And sometimes you got to deal with that gently, but also firmly.
Yeah.
Huh.
And again, you are not in control of the other household. You're in control of your household, and you're in control of how you respond to what happens in your household. So that's, it's being able to not try and do anything about what's happening over there, and stay in good faith that what is happening there is in the best interests of the family.
Yeah.
And I think we're fortunate that that happens a lot of the time. Is it always? No, but it's and again, you trust the kids to make up their own minds about where they want to be, how they want to conduct themselves. That's about trust.
Yeah, I think most families are somewhat dysfunctional. It's not always perfection, but I think if it's only somewhat, it's kind of okay. To not try and salvage everything all of the time. Walking back a little bit, were you ever jealous of Mandy's relationship with Gavin because they know each other for longer?
No.
Nice.
No.
Good man.
I had no reason to be jealous. So it was that relationship had ended long before Mandy and I met, and Mandy and Gavin were processing how they would interact with each other moving forward, and I was able to come in and be, and Mandy was able to be for me what we both needed for each other.
Yeah. Because I've heard stories about the new husband when he sees the wife interacting with her ex, because there's a familiarity there. That's in the body language, it's in the tone, it's the way they deal with each other. They may think that it's not obvious, but you can see it, right? And there's a bit of jealousy that creeps in at that moment because of that familiarity.
Yeah. No, fortunately, we haven't had any kind of I haven't had a reaction like that.
Yeah.
I'm not a jealous person, which probably helps.
It does.
But no, we have had nothing along those lines at all.
How do you feel about another belief that I have? In your case, I'll use your case as an example, where Mandy and Gavin would meet on a fairly regular basis, and I believe it's worthwhile to do it once every 3 months over, say, a coffee, right? And for an hour or two, just connect over the kids. I believe that's healthy. I believe it may solve the issue about how things are managed in the different homes. So bedtime in my house, and since they live with me, you have to sort of match the bedtime. Obviously, you don't have to have every single rule that I have in my home, but they are important ones. And I do believe that's worthy of conversation on a regular basis.
Those conversations in Mandy and Gavin's relationship is ongoing.
Oh, good.
So it's over phone, over WhatsApp. Mandy, I think, reaches out more than Gavin reaches in this direction. And that's also okay. But they've never met face-to-face, one-on-one, without other people around.
Okay. I think this is wonderful. And I really think we've learned quite a bit here. And I think the main takeaway is that it can be done. It's entirely possible. And this is quite an extreme example, I think, because usually you'd have both individuals bringing a child or children into the new relationship. and there would be things having to be managed. You not having an ex and having had children, I think, was a blessing in disguise for your relationship. I think it was probably why your friction is so much less than in other homes, because you just had to manage the one problematic or the one challenge. It was one-sided in a way, and you were okay with that. But I think if we had brought an ex-wife and children into the scenario from your side, yeah, I think it might have been a little bit more complicated.
I agree with you. I think not that all the adjusting came from my side, but again, I think that the backpack of baggage on my shoulder was less. Let's look at it that way.
Yeah.
And I actually continue to be grateful that Ryan and Robin have accepted me into their lives. And I'm very grateful that Mandy, myself, and the two kids have created something that works for all of us.
Yeah.
And that makes us all very happy. So yeah, I do agree with you though. I think, and probably not something that comes up that often, because if you'd asked me once when I was 28, was I going to marry a single mom? Would have been like, hell no. But that then, life changes. People change.
I would almost say, and this is the exception to it's something I'm sort of thinking of a lot more clearly when I advise young men, especially the modern type of young men, 25, 30-year-olds. I would almost say it is a generally bad idea, with exception, this being one of them, to get involved with a single mom, generally speaking, because of the complications and the issues. But in this case, this is obviously different. How would you feel about that statement if I said to you, for a young man in today's era to get involved with a single mom where there's an ex-husband and there's a kid or two, it's a generally speaking bad idea?
I'm going to disagree with you. I believe it's about the relationship first and foremost. If your relationship is right for both of you, I believe the relationship will be right. I believe the relationship will be right for the whole lot, the blendedness.
Yeah.
That's the way I see it. That's my perception. I can get where you're coming from, because it is going to require different mindset shifts and emotional shifts.
Therein lies the answer.
And the question is, are you willing? If you are willing and your relationship is important enough, then you're going to make it work. And again, I consider myself very fortunate to have two kids in my life, and not having to have changed nappies at some point.
You got lucky there. You hit the jackpot, I think. You are Mandy's second husband. She's your first wife. Is she your only wife?
Yeah. So far.
Not your practice wife.
She's my current wife, as Mandy would like to put it. So.
Touche. She exactly what she would have said. Gareth, that was wonderful. What a wonderful, wonderful conversation. I hope you guys have learned from it. I look forward to your comments on this one, about what you think of this one, because we do tend to take, I think, a lot of lessons from extremes, and I do look for the extremes a lot of the time. This is not an extreme; it's an exception because of the differences here. But I do think a lot of the solutions lie in the fact that they were both older, that you were already 40 at the time, I think, when they got together, and I think that had a lot to do with it. I think throw 25-year-old Gareth into the same situation, we might have a slightly different outcome.
Mandy and I, when we were first dating, she often said, if you want to trade me in for a younger model and start your own family, now's the time.
Yeah.
So it was something that we were aware of. And I agree with you. I think it was right for me from an emotional and a maturity point of view. And I think it took us in that it was just at the right time. Yeah.
I saw her today. She's changed her hair. She doesn't look like a younger model.
She does indeed. Yeah, she does indeed. She's investing in herself.
Good woman, good man. That was Blended Agenda, guys. Thank you for joining us.